Hey everyone, welcome to My Final Play. Thanks for joining me. I'm here with former University of Pittsburgh hockey player Adam Roskowski. Adam, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're going to get into the sport of hockey in general. How and at what age did you get into the sport?
Well, my story I feel like is a little bit different than the average person who played a high level of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, there's really not a local ice rink.
Right.
So I actually grew up down at the Bucknell Arena.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old and started playing roller hockey.
Okay.
And there was a pretty serious league back then. I mean, we probably had like eight to 10 house teams, and at 9 years old, and just kind of worked our way up through the ages.
Mm-hmm.
But I got into it because my dad took me to a Pittsburgh Penguins game when I was a kid, probably around that age. And all I wanted to do was play hockey. Became like completely obsessed with it. My brothers were, pretty big basketball players in the area,
mm-hmm.
and they'd be outside playing basketball, and I'd be outside skating around and shooting my puck. So I love the sport. So I played roller hockey growing up. When I was about 14 years old, I begged my parents, "Can I play ice hockey? Can I play ice hockey?" So they took me down to Sunbury,
mm-hmm.
which is out in Northumberland. It's the closest rink, about 45 minutes away. And I joined a league out there.
Mm-hmm.
Also around that time, I was like, well, I learned basically I don't know how to ice skate. And you think to yourself, oh, it's rollerblades, ice skates. It's pretty similar. It's almost a completely different sport, especially once you're pretty late into it. At 14 years old, most people growing up playing sports started it when they were 5.
Right.
So I got a little bit of a late start. So I begged my parents, can you send me to hockey camp over the summer?
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, sure, where do you want to go? And I go through a magazine, USA Hockey Magazine, and I find Minnesota hockey camps in Brainerd, Minnesota. And so I go, and I'm like, this is the camp I want to go to. Well, how long do you want to go for? I was like, all summer, They're like, well, how about 4 weeks? I said, all right, I'll go.
Yeah.
Little did I know, although I kind of had an idea, this was like one of the most elite hockey camps in the country, potentially in the world. I mean, they bring hockey players in that are professionals down to 8 years old,
mm-hmm.
and they're really high level hockey players. I mean, there are plenty of kids who got drafted while they're actually at that camp that summer.
Oh wow!
So I go out there. I'm 14 years old, barely know how to ice skate, but know how to play hockey.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the kids made fun of me my first week. They're like, oh, he can't stop, and I'm like skating as hard as I can. I just fly into the boards because I can't stop. But anyways, it took a couple of days. I learned how to stop.
Yeah.
Not to get too long-winded about it, but so I went to that camp. By the end of the 4 weeks, I was actually one of the fastest players in my group at the camp.
Oh wow!
Because I knew how to play the game, just couldn't skate.
Yeah.
Couldn't ice skate very well. So then, when I got back from that camp, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I love ice hockey. I want to play ice hockey. I don't want to go back to roller. So I actually talked my parents into sending me to a prep school
mm-hmm.
in Pittsburgh. So my junior year of high school, I went out to Shadyside Academy in Pittsburgh, which they had a full-fledged ice hockey program. They had a rink on campus,
oh, wow.
And it was truly a dream come true. Because from the time I was 9 until that moment, that's all I wanted to do was play ice hockey.
Right.
So I played there for 2 years,
mm-hmm.
then went to the University of Pittsburgh. I played club hockey. ACHA is the league that it's in, and I played that my freshman year. And then I decided my grades were a little rocky, so I took a couple years off and played again my senior year.
Okay.
I actually ended up parlaying that essentially into a coaching career.
Mm-hmm.
Did 10 years at the high school level, travel hockey, and collegiate level.
Okay, awesome. Now, as far as when you were at Shadyside Academy and University of Pittsburgh being right there, at what point did it kind of occur or click as far as the opportunity that presented itself to play at the collegiate level then?
Yeah, so I at that point in time, I knew I wanted to continue to play.
Mm-hmm.
I had a late start at it. I finally got to fulfill my dreams of playing on a real hockey team, and I had a pretty successful career at Shadyside. Even I was actually the leading scorer for 2 years on the varsity team, and I knew I wanted to play. So I started looking at colleges that had hockey teams.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew I wasn't going to be good enough to go D1 or D3 NCAA because, those guys, like I said, have been playing since they were 5.
Right.
And I'm also a little undersized, too. At 5'6", it's a little bit difficult sometimes to play a physical sport like hockey. although it's gotten much more finesse in the past couple of years. But regardless, so I looked at club schools. I love the University of Pittsburgh. My grandfather went to medical school there. My older brother John went to school there. I wanted to go to Pitt. They had a club team. I was like, reached out to the coach. He came out and saw me play. He was like, yeah, I like what you're doing out there. So, I basically walked onto the team that next year.
Awesome. Now, I mean, if you could explain a little bit as far as the dynamic and the structure of the collegiate hockey programs.
Yes. So, I mean, you basically have two main leagues. You have the NCAA, which everybody knows what that is, and they have, D1 to D3. And then you have ACHA, which is considered club hockey. Basically, D1 is the only program that provides scholarships. Even at the D3 level, they might provide some funding, but it's not as much. Club hockey, you take essentially the people who wanted to go to a different school, but they didn't have a Division I program, or you get people who were really good high school players, but maybe just didn't want to make a career at the Division I NCAA level.
Right.
And it's a completely organized league. You play against other colleges. People take it pretty seriously. I mean, we played against Penn State, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia. I mean, other really big schools.
Right.
Which we, as some people might be aware, Penn State actually started as a club program until about 5 years ago. They got a big donation from a private donor, which propelled them into the NCAA.
Yeah.
So it's still very good hockey, very high level hockey. It's just maybe doesn't have the funding and some of the other things that the other programs have. In the NCAA.
All right, definitely great insight there as far as what that structure looks like. So, as far as after you played, you went into coaching, and that gets us to the point of today. Your final play. Explain to us then, and where did you coach again?
This last year, my final play was with Bucknell University. Okay,
so as a coach then, coaching Bucknell, what does that final play look like?
So the final play was awesome. This was amazing. So I coached the Bucknell hockey team, and they were a club team as well. And throughout the season, we had a very successful season. I think heading into the final game of the season, our record was 20-1.
Oh wow!
We had the horses, we had the coaches. I mean, it was just good. We had a really good season last year. And we go into the final game of the season. We haven't lost in a while, and we run into Salisbury, who's based out of Maryland. And they come into our barn and our rink, and they just pounded us. It was 5-0. Just got kicked out of our own house type of thing. And we were all really surprised. We hadn't lost in a while.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? This is probably the best time to lose, right before playoffs, because players get content and they start thinking to themselves, oh, we're gonna walk all over everybody like we have all year. Well, no, that's not the case. We ran up against a good team. They beat us pretty bad. So we go into the playoffs, and that was the first time we played them last year. So we go into playoffs, and we win our first couple rounds, and of course we see Salisbury in the championship. And the other cool thing that's an aside from this is that when I was coaching ice hockey in Pittsburgh at the high school level, when I was coaching North Allegheny High School, we actually played at the same exact rink, the same exact locker room in Aston, Pennsylvania, which is just south of Philly, for the state championship game, and we won that. So in 2012, we won a state championship with NA at the same rink.
So you're back in the same place with the opportunity to win another championship at the club level.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
So it's just a really cool, surreal experience. It's 6 years later, kind of in the same spot, and came out, and it was just awesome because Salisbury was on a high. They had a very successful season too. They just beat the crap out of us 2 weeks before, and I mean, long story short, it ended up being they had a really tough goaltender. We scored a power play goal early in the game, and it was just downhill from there. We ended up winning it 5-1. So it was just awesome. I mean, my final play as a coach for now, ended up being another championship at the same rink that I won a state championship at.
Right.
And it was just awesome. I mean, the buzzer's ticking down. There's 10 seconds left, and everyone's throwing their equipment and meeting in the middle of the ice, and it's just like a pure celebration.
Celebration's on. So,
yeah.
And as far as obviously, there's a high from winning that. But explain to us a little bit as far as some of the other emotions that went with that. At that time, did you know that was going to be your last game for a while?
I did, yeah, I did. At the time, I had just started a new job and started working with a family business. Mm-hmm. My wife was pregnant with our first child. I was working on some other business ventures on the side, and I just, it was towards the end of March, and I was just like, I just knew I had to take a hiatus. Something would have to give.
Yeah.
So it was kind of disappointing, the players after the game were like, "Oh, coach, you're going to be back next year, right?" And I'm like, "I don't know, guys. I've kind of been holding on to this for a while, but we'll see. Check back in a couple weeks." But it was the best way to go out for now.
Right.
And I kind of joke, I'm kind of semi-retired because I know I'll get back into coaching once things start, hopefully settle down eventually.
Yeah.
Or don't settle down. But
at least get into a routine.
Yeah, exactly. Get into a routine.
Right. But, so as far as with those emotions and coming off that high to kind of go out on the on top, how has that played into what it is that you do today?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that I learned through the game of hockey is just building teams, getting along with people. Everybody has a different role in hockey. Yeah. It's kind of like, a lot of sports are like that. But you have the superstar who's just going to be so talented that there's not much you can do to slow him down. Yeah. You're going to have the grinders who are there just to show up and just work hard. Mm-hmm. And each one of those roles I think helps, especially from a business side, because in business and in management, you just have different personalities, different skill sets. Right. I still use a lot of the things I learned from playing and coaching mm-hmm. to this day.
Right, especially in that leadership aspect of organizing the team. How does that play into what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently I manage a small family business mm-hmm. and there's about 100 employees there, and I directly oversee 20 to 30 of them. So every day it's like that.
Right. So you've got a team, and you're leading them to victory.
Exactly. I'm trying to do my best, hiring people and retaining people and motivating and fitting people into roles that they're good at and helping develop maybe some attributes that they're not as good at. Mm-hmm. Just kind of being a teacher and a manager in that sense.
So the sport of hockey in general, played it from the age of 9. What would you say would be the number one characteristic that it's taught you that leaves the biggest impact?
I definitely say like that teamwork aspect. Yeah. Because everybody in hockey is the goal is to all pull in the same direction. Yeah. And not to be repetitive, but since everyone has different roles, you have to learn that even if you don't necessarily like the person you're playing with or like the player that you're coaching. Yeah. You're all still heading in the same boat, or mm-hmm. you're all in the same boat heading in the same direction. Right. So that teamwork aspect has been huge for me.
Awesome. So if you could take it all back and give yourself a piece of advice that would maybe better set you up for what it is that you're doing now, what do you think that piece of advice would look like?
Well, for me personally, when it relates directly to hockey, I wish I could have started earlier mm-hmm. and potentially grew up in an area with a rink that's closer, right. Things of that nature that were frankly out of my control. Mm-hmm. So when I look back on things that I can control, I think back to some of the advice I was given throughout the years, and one of them is like, when you're not working, someone else is. Right. When you take a day off, your competitor's out there busting their butt trying to get better. Mm-hmm. And I took that approach very seriously when I was playing, especially. Mm-hmm. I felt like the only reason I was even able to play at the college level was because I worked really, really hard at it. Right. So even to this day, I think about that. There's days when you just have an off day or you're just not feeling like going to work or whatever it is. That's perfectly natural. But, when you take days off, your competitors are getting better. Yeah,
so absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate the time that you've been able to give me today, and definitely appreciate the content. I hope everyone liked the content also. If you do, please like and subscribe below. And remember, whatever it is that you do today, approach it with the mindset of, is this my final play? Thanks a lot.